we're very excited to have our November meeting. We're doing, part of it is online. We'll have a YouTube video of this afterwards, so if you want to look at it again. And for all of you out there in YouTube land, hello. I wanted to announce that we're doing a very quick, fun contest. It's called the Holly Jolly Microfiction Contest. The due date is going to be December 6th at 11:59 p.m. It's just kind of a fun thing. We want to have something to kind of present at our December party. We're going to have a holiday party on December 12th. We're still debating if we'll do it here or at Zoom. We're trying to make sure we can include as many people as possible. So we'll be reading some of the winners during that party, and we'll be announcing the winners. The prize is an hour consultation with me, my consulting company, KJ Waters Consultancy. That's worth $100. And it's just 500 words. Very simple, holiday themed. We hope you enjoy it. We hope it's, just kind of make it fun. It's just something to get everyone back together. We've had great success with our summer contest. We did the Tornado Alley, and Kim has put together our anthology. Do we have a date when we think it might come out?
It's coming soon.
So we should have a paperback that you can purchase of our anthology of all the Tornado Alley items that all the essays that we had then. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kim.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We have a good group here. We have hopefully a good group online. We appreciate it so much. We are so excited to have Barbara Brannon speaking here today. For those of you who are know the history of Caprock Writers, Barbara and Kay were the original founders of the original Caprock Writers Alliance a few years ago, and then they have moved on to other pastures and other ventures, and Barbara's going to be talking a little bit about that. But as you can see, the legacy that they started is living on. Despite everything, we're still here, and we're still growing, and we're so excited and it feels like a good full circle moment to have them back. And Barbara has books here from their delightful Paragraph Ranch series. She has other publishing ventures that she's going to be talking about, a new book coming out, and so lots of exciting things. So we're very happy to have them here, and please welcome Barbara Brannon.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, KJ. Thank you, Mathis. And boy, are we a high-tech group today. Kay Ellington and I could hardly have imagined this when we launched Caprock Writers Alliance, what's it been, 4 years ago now? And we searched for a home all over Lubbock and could never have dreamed that the Garden and Arts Center would just be the perfect environment for all of you creative types. We moved from library to library and enjoyed some programs in much closer space than right now. So it's really great that even in the midst of the pandemic, y'all have figured out a solution, and you've been dedicated to coming together socially distanced during this time and to honing your craft. And I am just, pleased as I can be to have the chance to bring a little different angle of information to you today. So first, I want to just hear quickly from all of you who are here your first name and what you write. Kim, I know a little bit about your work. Kay and I have followed it for a long time, so we'll start with you and let's just go around the room.
Okay, I'm Kim Harris, and I write cozy mysteries that are set here in Lubbock.
All right, cozy mysteries. All right.
Yeah.
All right, we can go right on over here and come around.
I'm Dan Duane, and I write adventure stories.
All right, good deal. Adventure stories. Some of you I remember meeting at the inaugural gathering last year.
Fallon, middle grade children's.
Okay, all right.
Keith West, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and crime.
Good deal.
Tom Nichols, and I write mystery, espionage, and I have a brand new book out.
I've been seeing that. Good deal. I hope you brought some. All right.
I'm Jan Lloyd. I write young teen sci-fi.
Teen sci-fi. Okay.
Jefferson Marshall. children's...
With the Caprock Canyon series. Okay.
Children's adventure fiction.
Gotcha. Right back here.
Andrea, young adult lit.
All right, YA. Right.
Stephanie Thompson White.
I thought that was Tiffany back there. It's good to see you.
YA.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll come around here to you.
Kay Ellington, old lady fiction.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, and Mathis.
Mathis Rogers, I write gay romance that goes all the way.
Okay, all right. I remember that description from meetings past too. We think you come back around to KJ. Okay.
KJ Waters, I write women's fiction and time travel science fiction.
All right, good deal. We have quite a mix here. Any illustrators in the room? Okay, all right, good deal, good deal. It was wonderful to see that combination of the visual and verbal in the reincarnation of Caprock writers, because I think it's important to have the whole package as you think about crafting a book. And it was always my dream since I was 4 years old to be a book author and illustrator. So it's great to see the direction that y'all are taking this. We're going to talk a little bit today about publishing by the numbers. This may be familiar information to some of you. There may be twists that are new. You'll have the opportunity to answer some questions and win prizes, so be on your toes there. There's no need to take notes if you don't want to, because I think Mathis is recording this and the PowerPoint will be available for streaming with better quality than just how it is on the screen, so you're welcome to consult that again if you need to. Well, over the decades of my career, I have devoted most of it to some aspect of book publishing, one way or the other. Whether it was working on the editorial side as a lowly proofreader and copy editor, and working my way up to being a managing editor for a publishing house, or when I moved out to West Texas and worked for Texas Tech University Press, it was on the sales and marketing side. So I became a lot more acquainted with the numbers side of things in that role than I had with the words and pictures side in other roles. And I'm very grateful for the time that I spent doing that work, because it helped me understand how to better position my creative work for the marketplace. So that's going to be the focus of all of this. Now, what am I doing these days? Just FYI, Kay and I are still working on our third book in the Paragraph Ranch series, and we continue to write in short forms and long forms, songwriting, poetry. I'm involved in a bit, but our livelihood is in the newspaper business. Kay's career has always been in newspapering since she was born in Snyder and then went to work for the Snyder Daily News in high school, and has been with major newspaper firms all around the country before coming back to work with the Avalanche Journal. And now we are the co-owners of a small weekly, the Texas Spur, in Spur, 70 miles from here. And I've got a couple of issues that I'll put on the table for you to take a look at if you're interested. And boy, do the numbers matter now, because it's all about sustaining more than one livelihood by virtue of selling advertising and selling subscriptions, and we monitor the numbers on those things daily. So we can touch on aspects of sales of other media as well. Authentic Texas Magazine is a project that we've been involved with for 5 years. So if you have questions that are other media than books, feel free to ask. But we're going to focus this on what matters most to you. So next slide. So numbers are what make your book discoverable and profitable. Now, it's easy to imagine that you want to think about how much money your creative enterprises are going to make, and whether you can make this at least not lose money. If you have a plan to be an author as a profession or as a sideline, not just as a hobby, not just art for art's sake, but it's the numbers that also make it possible for your book to be found by the readers who most want to read them. I'm a firm believer that every book has its ideal audience out there, and it's just a matter of finding it. So we're going to talk about some things like, go ahead and click through these quickly if you will, the ISBN and EAN, physical characteristics of your book. We'll look at that a little bit. Metadata, there's a lovely word, price, sales, and rankings. And so we'll start here with your book's vital statistics. Who can answer a really easy question for me? Where do we find the ISBN? You can go ahead and go to that next slide where the baby was. Where do we find the book's ISBN? On the copyright page. Good. Where else?
Back cover.
On the back cover? Where?
Barcode.
In the barcode, down here. Okay. Those are some places that we find it on the physical book or in an ebook. We're going to find it on the copyright page of the ebook. We're also going to find it as the #1 indicator in any of your book's metadata. The ISBN is your book's. Go ahead and click ahead. Go ahead and click to the next one. There's the barcode right there. That's your book's social security number. It's going to follow it throughout the life of each edition. And who was the first to say that we find that on the copyright page? Somebody over here. I'm going to give you an example that you can help us out with some more things. If you don't win the book you wanted to win when you answer a question, I've got a half a dozen of them here, and you can swap afterwards if there's something that interests you more. All right, go ahead to the next slide then. Let's decode the barcode. All right, Kim, you've got the book that has the barcode down there in it. Where we find the ISBN is pretty obvious, isn't it? Because it says ISBN. What does that stand for? All right, come on, figure it out. ISBN. The B is the easy part. Go for that. That's book. All right. I heard international. Standard. Book. The N is also easy. Number. International Standard Book Number. Now, EAN is also a term that you will hear, and that word comes from a little more arcane part of book metadata, which is the EAN book world. EAN was a European number to start with. It distinguished books from other items that had SKUs in the market, starting in the 1960s, when computerized inventory made it necessary to start identifying books and every other kind of product by a digital identifier. So ISBN, EAN are pretty much interchangeable for our purposes. But there are other parts of this that matter. Down here on the bottom, you'll see that the ISBN is repeated in human readable language that decodes these stripes that are, you do this at Walmart every time you self-check out. Scannable barcode. All right. And then over here in this other set to the right, what do we have there? Why does this book have 9 followed by four zeros? Did this book cost $90,000?
Vendor's choice.
What's that? That's good, Tom. Go ahead and speak up.
It's the vendor's choice, what they're going to charge.
That's right. There's no stipulated price published by the publisher. Now, even though the publisher is the party that sets the price, the suggested retail price. It's like the car with the manufacturer's suggested retail price. It can vary, and a retailer can put a different price on it if you allow them to, and not stipulating the price on the barcode. This is important for those of you who are self-publishers as well. Allows you the flexibility of changing the price at any time in the book's history by simply changing the metadata in your upload. So one other bit of trivia that I'd like to decode in the ISBN. What does that series of numbers mean anyway? 978, let's start with that. We're going to look at each of those 5 elements of this barcode. What is the 978? That just indicates that this is part of the universe of Bookland. EAM, this is a book as opposed to another kind of product. What does the number 1 mean? Some of you have self-published. You may have had a little more experience with this. I'm hearing an answer out there. You have to shout up and speak up through your mask.
Is it the edition number?
What's that?
Does it mean it's volume 1?
It isn't. That is a good possibility. This indicates the country of publication or the region of the world. So you've got 10 digits to work with here, and 1 indicates the U.S. and North America. So 2, I believe, is Germany, if I remember right. So that'll help you identify the area of the world where the book was published, and this becomes increasingly important as Amazon and other online retailers allow our books to reach other sales markets globally, whether we publish in different languages or not. It's great to know that Amazon makes it easy for your books to sell in Australia. But the publication, the country of publication, regardless of where it's sold, is what's indicated there. In the third group of 5 digits, any idea there? It's like your zip code. It keeps getting a little more and more refined. So what are we looking at there? Any of you who have self-published, you have a publisher prefix? Your publisher prefix appears right there in the barcode. That it can be 4, 5, or 6 digits, depending on how many ISBNs the publisher purchased, whether you have a 1-digit, 2-digit, or 3-digit book identifier. So this will identify you as your unique publisher. And so that one happens to be Winoka Press, which was the imprint we started 20 years ago and have published our own books and some other books since that time. 461 then, any guesses? 461? That's, what's that?
Would it be author?
That is a good guess.
As a previous publisher.
Just the number of the book. So in sequence, ISBNs are assigned in a certain sequence. It's fairly random, but you don't skip numbers. When you are the publisher and you're setting out your list of the next 20 books, you're going to assign them all individual ISBNs. ISBNs cannot be reassigned. They're like Social Security numbers. They don't get repurposed. And you need an ISBN for each individual edition of your book. We won't go into all the bibliographical trivia of edition, printing, issue, and state, but just to say that for purposes of those of you who self-publish, you may have a hardcover edition, a trade paperback edition, a mass market paper edition, an ebook edition. Each of those gets a unique ISBN that identifies that particular product at its separate price level. Now, we've got one more little number sticking out there at the end, this little 8. Okay, what do we need now? We've clearly got more than 8 authors. It's not an author identifier. So, if the scanner goes to read the number, the scanner is going to be much more accurate than you are as humans. And you as humans may have keyed in a number wrong in this whole sequence. Your publisher number may not match up with your range of numbers for the number of ISBNs you have. This is a checksum digit that mathematically assures the accuracy of the other numbers in the string. So if you're a math type and you want to read up on that, it's a little bit of an interesting way to understand how the ISBN agencies came up with this system for verifying accuracy of numbers. All right, any questions about ISBNs? I think that we've explored about as much as we can for today. Jefferson.
So there's a way you can make the price not set, but they get to decide.
We'll get to that in metadata. Yes, you can by entering 9 followed by 4 zeros. That says it's an open price, and the retailer has the discretion of the price, or you, the publisher, can put a variable price on it. Yes. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, let's look at physical aspects of the book, and I'm gonna pick one. Oh, here we go. All right, I'm going to pick the one right here for someone to win. We're going to start by talking about one of the most important marketing tools that your book may have that appears on it, and that is a few words of praise from someone whose book, you might be like yours, might kind of help, say, if you loved this scent, you'll really like this brand. What is that called? A blurb. Very good. All right, why don't you look at that book that we published through Winoka Press a few years ago. Look at the blurb that's on the very bottom of the front cover. Read that blurb to us, if you would.
Booze? Say again, please.
With the blurb, the bit of praise at the bottom of the front cover.
You want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, read it for us if you would, and tell us who blurbed it.
Okay. This graceful memoir will make you sit up and salute a noble soul, even as you lament the passing of an era. Phil Moyers.
Is that a familiar name to you? Bill Moyers was a friend of the author. We were really lucky to have a bit of praise from him. I'm sure that y'all have always all been in similar situations where you were fortunate enough to get some really good things that help market your book. So we'll go through this really quickly. Front cover. Back cover, spine. All right. Inside the book, there are a few things to know about how a book is professionally designed and packaged that I often see first-timers not recognizing, and that is you've got often. I picked one that doesn't have a half title page, didn't I? You often have a few pages in the front before the actual title page, and you may have a half title page, you may have a dedication page, you may have an epigraph, but a few items should always appear on the book's main title page. Title of the book. If it has a subtitle, include that there. Don't put the colon between the title and the subtitle. Let the typography do the work for you. The author or authors' names, if there are foreword authors or preface authors who lend luster to your work, put those there as well, and the imprint of the publisher. Flipping on through, the copyright page contains all those important numbers. It's the back of your title page. In a print book, it's always the back of your title page. Incidentally, numbers in a print book always start with the odd numbers on the left. That's called the recto. And the even numbers are on the back. That's called the verso. Here's another aspect of numbers that is really important to know in order to look like you know what you're doing if you're the one responsible for designing the book or approving when someone else lays it out. On the copyright page will appear your ISBN. And Kim, as you're following along, I hope all of these things are correctly on the copyright page here. You may have a bit of information about permissions. You may have some short acknowledgments. You may have a number of other things in addition to the all-important copyright notice, which consists of the word copyright, the C in the circle, the year, and the creator. It used to be that you could lose your copyright over omission of that information from your copyright page. That's no longer so since 1976. It's acknowledged that the author owns the copyright in their work, whether they remembered to put the notice properly or not. But nonetheless, you want to take credit for it. You want to let people know, hey, you're serious, and this book is protected by copyright in the U.S. and other recognizing countries. There'll be another really important number on your copyright page. Kim, do you see that down there? Somewhere there'll be a control number or an CIP or PCCN. Tom, you're looking at your book. What do you see a control number, a bibliographical control number of any sort?
I see, I've got ISBNs for print and ebook.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a control. Oh, yes. Printed in the United States of America, then 10, 9,
Speak up again. Just
walk me through it.
all right. Hold it up. We'll keep social distance and then just hold it up. Okay, that's their phone number. I'm looking for a control number. Maybe we don't have one, or maybe the type is too small and I can't see it right now. What might be the function of yet another control identifier on this page? Besides selling books to the market, who else needs to quickly be able to categorize and find your book? KJ?
The publisher?
What's that?
The publisher?
The publisher does indeed, but what consumer? Tiffany?
Library.
Libraries! This is a bibliographical control number. It can be issued by the Library of Congress to participating publishers and even to self-publishers. And there are a number of different programs aimed at helping publishers of various sizes to have a number that helps the library know where to shelf it. And that will tell them how to download the bibliographical data that goes into your library catalog. So very, very important.
With that,
Okay.
You can go it.
All right, here we go.
would that number be something like HB 5293.M1783?
That's a Library of Congress call number. So that can also appear there. The control number will be a little bit different, but some form of bibliographical identifier, and we can talk more specifically about this for your books afterwards. Let's get on through a little bit more of this. Now, as for the price of the book, you may notice, Kim, you've got a copy of Fairies of North Carolina. Does the price appear anywhere that you saw? Often the price is printed up in the corner of the back cover of your book, but if you self-published it, as we did Fairies of North Carolina, you may find that you priced it too high or you priced it too low, and you may find that you have stock that lasts you for 10 years and you may want to keep up with inflation. So I recommend not printing the price on the book. Most university presses follow that rule, but publishers that are geared more to a retail audience, and especially mass market paperbacks that sell in grocery stores, will often include the price. All right. Let's see. We're going to look, next slide. We're just going to look a little bit more, and you can flip through these so that they're all showing on the screen. On the back cover, that is your most valuable marketing real estate after the cover. And so, the cover you want to keep decorative. You want it to be a tease. You want it to be beautiful. You want it to be eye-catching. You want it to signal the genre that you write in. You want the author name to be prominent if you're a known quantity. You want a great-sounding title. On the back cover, however, this is where the rubber meets the road. And you're going to want to have a capsule book description. Writing the book description is a whole other workshop, and it's an art form. Praise and blurbs generally go on the back cover. Many publishers choose not to put blurbs on the front cover of a first edition on the grounds that, well, you know, did a legitimate reviewer really have the opportunity to give it that praise before it came out? It may look a little suspicious. We all know that those blurbs are solicited from your ARCs or advanced reader copies, and that you probably do have praise in hand even before the first edition comes out. But depending on the book, I say it just depends on the book. So, you know, this sensational memoir of a newsman's, you know, life, helping found Newsday, is the kind of book where you may want to put the blurb on the front cover. And we did. We put some of them on the front, some of them on the back. Author bio and photo is really important. And professional headshot, professionally written and tweaked and ever-changing for, you know, as each of your new books comes out. Author bio, that's also another workshop. And then your publisher identification information and your barcode. So let's go on to the next one. And we're going to talk a little bit about metadata. So how many of you have published a book on CreateSpace or another platform where you have uploaded information about your book? All right, Mathis, what are some of the bits and pieces you have to put into the database of your platform?
Key search words.
Key search words, right?
And what genre it is.
The genre, right, the category of book.
Yeah, and that's all I can think of.
Let's focus on those two.
Yeah.
Choosing the genre of your book from a list. Is that always an easy thing to do?
No.
What are some of the challenges you face when you're trying to just say, hey, mine's YA, you know, I write YA, I write memoir.
Some of us engage across genre.
Yes, what about all this cross-pollination of genres? It really does make it hard. The Paragraph Ranch series, did we want to call that women's fiction? Well, we leave out those male readers who might have enjoyed, you know, the perspective. Do we call it contemporary fiction because it's fairly contemporary, although, you know, now it's set 10 years ago. Does that make it historical? If you have a subplot that went back and mined history, does that make it historical fiction? Do you call it mystery because there is a mystery involved in the plot? It's really difficult to choose which of those is going to appeal most to your reader. And we found that we indeed called the Paragraph Ranch women's contemporary fiction. But you don't get to pack all of that into your standard book identifiers that you have to choose from. And you eventually have to pick, don't you? Then you get a little bit more latitude with the descriptors that are, and I don't know if y'all can see here the range of descriptors that I put here, but the important thing is that they come from a set thesaurus. It's a controlled vocabulary of terms called, anybody know? I got a prize here. Anybody? It's on the board here somewhere. Anybody know what that controlled vocabulary of descriptors is called?
Metadata.
What's that? Well, metadata is the whole universe. It's like saying, you know, these are descriptors of a book. This is like your eyes are blue, you know, your hair is brown. Those are metadata fields.
The subject code.
BISG. Okay, Kim, you can't win another book here. All right, let me pass along the Pirates book to someone back here, and y'all can share these around. Right? BISG, the Book Industry Study Group, BISG, came up with BISG descriptors as a way of allowing booksellers to quickly sort through areas of their inventory and determine where books were going to be shelved in the bookstore. What does that tell you? On the reverse side, when you're writing your book and you're seeking an editor, agent, or publisher, what does that tell you you might want to know? How are you going to help make some decisions about where your book might eventually live?
You want to know what's selling right now.
You want to know what's selling right now? All right. What's a good way to find that out?
I go on to Kindlepreneur.
All right. Go on Kindle. Absolutely.
Kalytics is a the research that looks into what's on Amazon selling hot markets.
Okay, excellent. And maybe that's information that you might want to, share with the presentation. If there are particulars that that everybody else wants to kick in, I suppose we could add those to that. I always used to tell my publishing students, go to your nearest Barnes & Noble. Independent bookstores are great, but Barnes & Noble has lots more books on the shelves. And just go browse the entire store until you find the place in the store where you want your book to live. So look in all the genres, think outside the box, but eventually just decide, what do I want my book to be next door to? Then take that book off the shelf and write down all the metadata that you can record. Take a picture with your phone or whatever, and then go to Amazon, look up that book, and look at its subject codes. So that's another whole workshop too. But it's just important for you to know that those BISAC codes are one of the most important pieces of metadata you will need to enter. Let's go to the next slide and see a little bit about how metadata functions. Now, if we are self-publishers, and I've been both, self-publisher, small publisher, and worked for large publishing houses, and I get to see, I've gotten to see a lot of the differences in how this works when you're a self-publisher and you're going to enter field by field. You're going to be prompted for that next bit of information, and you better have it all ready to put in and save with the record of your book in order to make it more discoverable. But if I'm working for a major publisher, or if my book is in the catalog of a publisher and it's going to come out in a forthcoming season, I know that the marketing department of that publisher is creating a spreadsheet that has their season in it, and it may have up to 70 or 80 discrete information fields. The more comprehensive the publisher can be in providing this information to the sales channels, and I've listed some common sales channels over here, both physical and virtual, the better chance your book has of being shelved correctly, discovered by browsing readers, being served up by, if you liked this, you will also like this, and being marketed by hand selling at the bookstore or through the major distributors' marketing programs. The more complete your metadata is, then the more windows onto your book open at places like Ingram and Baker & Taylor and the major retailers. Baker & Taylor and Ingram, by the way, you probably know, are the middlemen of the U.S. publishing industry. They are the large distributors that warehouse books to fill orders promptly for independent booksellers and for some chain booksellers. Amazon is a law unto itself, warehousing its own inventory, but Baker & Taylor and Ingram are very important to you also, to know. And let's see, the mechanism by which this spreadsheet of all this data reaches all of these outlets is called ONIX, Online Information Exchange, and it's a sophisticated data upload that matches the publisher's spreadsheet with the corresponding fields in this standard for the book industry. That's a lot for a small publisher to know or a self-publisher to know, and that's why outlets like CreateSpace, BookBaby, all the self-publishing portals make it easy for you to make sure your metadata ends up in the right place, even though you didn't start with this sophisticated spreadsheet. But what we would do with our new authors with a new title was have them fill out an information sheet that was just like a dossier, for a person. This would be all the vital statistics about the book, and we would challenge them to think about those descriptors. We would challenge them to think of how their book ought to appear in the marketplace. Other bits of metadata might be the number of total pages, the number of front matter pages, plus the number of main pages. Does your book have an index? Does your book have photographs? Does your book include an afterword or a foreword or a preface? And if so, who were the writers of those? First, middle, last names. You want those names to match up with the same authors in other bibliographical control databases. There may be another Tiffany White author on the face of the planet. There may be another Tom Nichols, but maybe, so you don't want to get confused with those. But if your name is Tom Brown, Dan Brown. If your name is Dan Brown, you want to make sure that it's the right Dan Brown, even though you might want to piggyback on that. Nielsen BookScan is the system that gathers sales data. So Onyx is information in from the publisher to the sales channels. From the sales channels back to the publishers is Nielsen BookScan and other analytics that help booksellers know what's selling and know how to control their inventory. All right, that's a whole lot to grasp in a short while. Do we have any other questions about that part of it? Because we're going to move along fast through the rest of these slides, so that try your patience there. All right, going to the next one. All right, what successful books is yours like? We talked a little bit about this. These are some of the ones that Kay and I liked, some that we researched and thought we would love to aspire to have the kind of success of a Fannie Flagg, who has a new book out, by the way, of Debbie McComber, I can't remember her name, Ann Ross from North Carolina, who we met way back when we first started the Paragraph Ranch series, and when we came to Texas, Jody Thomas. Everybody aspires to have the kind of success that Jody has, and these are the books that we went to the bookstore and spent hours deconstructing, so that we could figure out how to do that. All right, we're going to have a little bit of a change of pace here with a short reading from my next book, and so KJ, go ahead and go to that. To that slide, we're going to pause for a reading of something very different. And I'm going to pass this around, if it's okay to pass it around. I'm going to show you one of the advantages of having a newspaper is that you can print what you want in it. So back in April, when I anticipated that the novel that I had been working on kind of as a lark under a pseudonym would be coming out in October. Perfect time for a Gothic, Victorian mystery. That we had permission from the publisher to serialize it in the newspaper. What a wonderfully Victorian marketing tool to have your fiction appear in serial form before it appears in book form. So this was the first installation in April. I think that was right about the same time that this program I was going to do got canceled and moved to fall, and the publisher said all dates are on hold, and that book will be coming out now in 2021. But I want to read you a little bit of it, if you can bear with me. So at the end, you can go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. At the end of chapter 2 of The Wolf Hunt, we find ourselves on a blustery October evening in the apartments shared by consulting detective Derek Miles and his colleague Dr. Frank Hooper above the boot shop on Houston Street in Fort Worth, Texas. The year is 1891. And Mr. Barlow, a Quaker from Estacado and a friend of the rancher who has died under mysterious circumstances in the desolate Croton Breaks, has come to beg Miles's help. Barlow has just finished reading aloud the account of the incident from the Dickens County newspaper. This is the tale as narrated by Dr. Hooper, and you may find some similarities to a story you already know well. Derek Miles drew out a long breath and took another sip of his Jameson's. "That," said Mr. Barlow, "is the full public account of the death of Basil Wolverton. I must thank you for coming so far over such treacherous territory to bring this case to my attention," said Miles. "And I thank you as well for your systematic approach to describing it. This article, you say, contains all the public facts known within the first hours of the event? 'Tis a lucky circumstance that the weekly paper comes out on Friday afternoons. The editor happened to have been one of those summoned soonest to the scene and rushed his issue into print. I obtained a copy from him right off the press, judging it to be of use in my mission." "Indeed. Then tell us anything you know that was not reported in the paper." He leaned back and dimpled his fingertips in a judicial mien. Most of Miles's visage was obscured in shadow, however, and I could not readily gauge his reactions. "In doing so," said Mr. Barlow, who had begun to show signs of some strong emotion, "I am telling thee of observations I've not confided to anyone. Such reticence runs counter to my upbringing in Quaker plain speech. But my reasons for withholding such information from the coroner and the newspaper are several. One is that a man of faith shrinks from appearing to endorse a popular suspicion. And further, I wanted to do nothing that might hamper the fortunes of my neighboring county or cause harm to a friend's reputation. But I will be frank in the expectation that thee will preserve my confidences." "I assure you that your trust is well placed," said Miles. "Go on." "Dickens County is sparsely inhabited and served by no railroad nor means of communication other than a few haphazard telegraph stations. Those who live there must rely on one another and on services from their neighboring county. For this reason, I saw a good deal of Basil Wolverton, with the exception of Judge John McQuarrie of the Bar Inn Ranch, Mr. Rufus Griswold, the dowser and geologist, and his daughter, and the farmer Hagans, who has recently arrived to establish a cotton gin, along with Mr. Hank Smith and his wife of the Blanco Canyon Rock House in my own county. There are a few other people outside of our own settlement within a day's ride in any direction whose interests have aligned with my own. I have said that the Earl was a private man, but the chance of his land deal brought us together, and shared concern for civic life kept us so. He subscribed by mail to news from throughout the United States as well as from Britain, and many a stimulating evening we spent together discussing world events and local affairs alike. Over the course of this long, hot summer, it became increasingly plain to me that the Earl's nervous system was strained to the breaking point. He had taken exceedingly to heart this fable which I've related to thee, so much so that although he would ride over the grounds near to his ranch headquarters by day, nothing would induce him to go down into the breaks day or night. He allowed his herds to dwindle almost to nothing, instead diverting his investments to the railroads. He often relied upon me to disburse his charitable distributions, to account for their successful transfer, and also to mask their source. Incredible as it may appear to thee, Captain Miles, the Earl was honestly convinced that a dreadful fate overhung his land. Others in his close company can attest to this impression as well. The idea of some ghastly presence constantly haunted him, and on more than one occasion he had asked me whether I had on my journeys spied any strange creature or come upon larger than usual animal tracks. I can well remember driving up to his house one September evening in my buckboard at the late hour when the setting sun cast long shadows over the valleys. He chanced to be at the door of his house. I had descended from my perch and was standing in front of him when I saw his eyes fix themselves over my shoulder and stare past me with an expression of the most dreadful horror. I whisked around and had just time to catch a glimpse of something which I took to be a large calf passing at the head of the path. So excited and alarmed was he that I was compelled to go down to the spot where the animal had been and look around for it. It was gone, however, and the incident appeared to make an extreme impression upon his mind. I stayed with him all that night, and it was on that occasion, to explain the emotion which he had shown, that he confided into my keeping that narrative which I have shared with you just now. I mention this small episode because it assumes some importance in view of the tragedy which followed, but I was convinced at the time that the matter was entirely trivial and that his excitement had no justification. It was on my advice afterward that the Earl was preparing to travel to Fort Worth and thence down to Austin for his health. It grieves me to consider that my friend would have traveled in peace, perhaps, in the very train car I occupied coming here, had events not taken such a turn. Mr. Barlow paused for a moment to regain his composure, then continued. His heart was, I knew, affected, and the constant anxiety in which he lived, however chimerical the cause of it might be, was evidently having a serious effect upon his state of mind. I myself had suggested that a sojourn at Barton Springs might do him enormous good, and that a few months among the distractions of the capital city would send him back a new man. Mr. Griswold, a mutual friend who was much concerned at the state of his health, was of the same opinion. Then at the last instant came this terrible catastrophe. I nodded, indicating my sympathy with the unfortunate Wolverton's plight, but also the wisdom of Mr. Barlow's prescription. Miles remained impassive as Barlow continued his testimony. On the night of the Earl's death, Lopez, the ranch manager, who made the discovery, sent a man out to the colony at Estacado to fetch me, as I have said, and I returned that very night with him to the Wolverton ranch. The Earl's body had been removed to the ranch house, where it was laid on a plank table in a spare bedroom. I was shocked to note its condition. The limbs as gruesomely splayed as they might have been in the very moment of terror, the facial features contorted in apparent fear. I grieved for the horror and pain my friend must have experienced in his final moments. The body, Lopez said, was already stiffened when he had come upon it. Miles interjected. How many hours do you surmise elapsed between the time of the event and the time of Lopez's discovery? I cannot say for my own account, and Lopez could not be sure either, though he was certain that the Earl left on his ride at twilight about 5:30 in the evening, and it was after 10 when the riderless horse arrived at the house. It took Lopez another 15 minutes to follow the trail. Certainly for sufficient time for rigor mortis to have set in, I noted. Stiffening begins with the eyelids, neck, and jaw as early as 2 hours after death. As for the appearance of the facial features you described, Mr. Barlow, it would indeed have taken a severe shock for such an expression to have resisted the immediate relaxation of muscle tissue that typically precedes stiffening. I registered the sobering effect of my clinical words upon Mr. Barlow and retreated in embarrassment. Do continue, Mr. Barlow, urged Miles. And our guest snapped back to the difficult task he had to come to fulfill. After saying a brief prayer for the departed, I asked Lopez if he might accompany me down to the site where the Earl had breathed his last. I felt it my duty as Wolverton's attorney and executor of his estate to witness all evidence for myself. We rode along the fence to the gate, carrying cedar knot torches to light our way, and taking care not to disturb the damp earth any further than necessary. Once I reached the gate, however, it was obvious to me that the frenzied activity of men and horses had already obliterated prints of feet and hooves that might have lent clarity to the events. The site, regrettably, had been quite compromised from an evidentiary standpoint. I berated the ill fortune that I had not been on hand sooner, or even to have accompanied the Earl that night and perhaps forestalled his death. I resigned myself to returning at daylight, which I did alone after remaining the evening at the Wolverton house. At that point, with the benefit of shadows cast by early light, I made a most startling discovery. Miles leaned forward, and I set aside my self-absorption and paid close attention. Signs on the ground indicated that events were quite as Lopez and the ranch hands had described. The Earl had dismounted at the gate, stood for a while smoking his cigar as indicated by traces of fallen ash and a few still observable prints of his boots. Additionally, there were no spent bullets about nor sign of any struggle. But the Earl's footprints I now saw as the damp mud had hardened like ceramic molds, altered their character from the time that he passed the ranch gate and that he appeared from thence onward to be walking on his toes. Curious, Miles added. Yes, said Barlow, and in this region and just beyond, there were deep footprints. Footprints? Footprints. A man's or a woman's? Mr. Barlow looked strangely at us for an instant, and his voice sank almost to a whisper as he answered. Captain Miles, they appeared to have been the footprints of a gigantic wolf. So, here is, thank you. Here's why I interject this bit of reading in the middle of our presentation on numbers. It's because it's with this book that I learned a few things about writing under a pseudonym and about working with a publisher whose primary market is the library hardcover market. So let's move on, and we have just a few more slides to wrap up with. We talked a little bit about BISAC codes, and we'll go ahead and skip that one. Talked about the 800-pound gorilla, Amazon. You can click that next slide. 72% of all adult books sold these days, as 2019, sold by Amazon. What should your book sell for? You can go to the next one. These are the decisions that my publisher, 5-Star Cengage, 5-Star is a publisher of Western historical fiction that is a part of the major international conglomerate Cengage that does educational materials. But they were a good fit, and I was really flattered that they picked up on this book. But as I said, they primarily serve a library market, and they price their original hardcovers about $25. This is going to be a book that runs a standard 300 pages. In a trade paperback, it would be about this size, right here. And it'll be a little bit thicker. I don't think I even brought a library edition of a book with me. It'll be a little bit thicker than that. And I was pleased as punch after some weeks of back and forth consideration with the editor and filling out a preliminary questionnaire and having, a positive response to that, to receive an actual publishing contract. That had not happened often during my publishing career, and I had to parse all the terms in it. And one that I expected was a 10% royalty. So let's look at that. We've determined the publisher sets the price. Publisher says this book's going to sell for $25, and that's what we're going to sell it to in the library markets. We don't do a trade edition. You are free to keep those rights and to seek another publisher or self-publish the trade edition. So we're working on that. That's in the works. But if the end market is a library, does library pay $25 for that book, or might they have the purchasing power to purchase at a discount?
Discount.
Yeah, so at a discount. So what is that 10% going to be of? Anyways, that 10% of $25 that I'm going to make on every book? Not always. How many of you have sold your books how many of you have had a contract where you've had to find your way through these terms? Whether the royalty is paid on the net or on the retail. Kim, any insight into this?
Well, my experience was quite a while ago, before ebook royalties were even, they were.
Okay, before ebook royalties.
And, my experience was a publisher wants to buy my book, I don't care. So, I read it all, and I couldn't, I wasn't really all that interested in anything except for this publisher wants to buy my book. So that was my naive, foolish experience.
I think many of us would be completely with you on that one. Tiffany, any insight to add to that?
Your commissions are never going to be what they think they should be.
All right. Those royalty earnings are never going to be what you think they're going to be.
Do the math all kinds of ways, but it's never going to be what it is.
Be prepared that it may take a long time to see a check, and when you see the check, it may be small. Now, those of you who self-publish through CreateSpace and other platforms may, you have the satisfaction of knowing that your royalty percentage is higher. and that your royalties are going to come to you more frequently on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis without having to wait forever for an advance to earn out. But your royalty will be paid nonetheless, many times on the price the book actually sells for at wholesale, not at retail. Now, so a word to the wise, when you get to that point of negotiating with a publisher or having your agent negotiate with the publisher on your behalf, you always say that you want your royalties to be based on retail. That used to be the norm until the ebook and self-publishing revolution. It was the norm that royalties, whatever percentage they might be at a starting point, would be based on the retail selling price of the book, which was much more standard, and there were no digital books in those days. There might even be what's called an escalating clause, with successful sales increasing in percentage by increment. So 2,500 copies, 10,000 copies, whatever it might be for a best-selling author, that might increase to 12.5%, might increase on up to 15, 25%. Special sales and library sales often paid a higher royalty because the sales were smaller. That was a secondary market. So those might have been based at 25% royalty. So the point here just being there is no one set royalty number, and the numbers can mean something very different from what you think.
Can you give a rough of what would the wholesale price be then on a $25 book?
What's that?
What would the rough wholesale price be?
The rough wholesale price, I'm going to answer that really quickly instead of us going through our little exercise that we usually do on the next couple of slides, which is to see how the pie divides out. But it's 40 to 50% of the bookseller is going to buy your books, whether it's Barnes & Noble, whether it's the Second and Charles, whether it's the bookstore right down the street. They're going to buy from Ingram or Baker & Taylor at 40% off of the retail price. Sometimes they negotiate for even more, and sometimes if your book is a short print run, specialized title, a nonfiction title published by a university press, for instance, it might be on a short discount, which is 20 to 25%. And we can talk more about those numbers individually. The discount, the last thing on here that I'm referring to, is the difference between those numbers. Unlike other retail goods that are sold in Walmart's, your boutique down the store, when someone goes and purchases those at market or wherever they're going buying their inventory, they are purchasing at a set price and they're going to mark it up. They'll mark it up a little, they mark it up as a loss leader, or they mark it up a lot, but the retailer determines the markup. In the book publishing industry, it's backwards from that. The publisher sets the price, and the discount is the negotiable term, so that's how your book may end up selling for different prices in different places. And that math can be quite complicated. If you're lucky, you have a publisher who can help you decipher those terms. If you're a self-publisher, you're going to have to get pretty good at running the math yourself. All right, going to the next one. We talked already about how much you're going to make in royalties, but there's one really important thing I want to mention before we close, and that's the matter of the advance. And I'm sure all of you who monitor Publishers Lunch are familiar with looking at who's made the sweet deals, who's made the good deals, who's made the outstanding deals based on the amount of the advance, the projected print run, and maybe the royalty terms. And they're not always specific, but we know because we read the headlines in the book industry that for star authors and bestsellers, the advance can be enormous. It can be in the millions of dollars, well enough to keep the author well fed and a roof over their head while they finish the book. So if you're lucky, the advance comes in the stage of negotiation when you have pitched the book, maybe written part of it and not even finished it, and then there'll be another portion of the advance when you finish it and another portion when the book is finished. I was fortunate enough to get an advance check on this book. Thankfully, just the week before they, had to shift all the publication dates. So that's great. That's money in my pocket, and it was a little bit, to kind of keep me going, but mostly to keep my ego going. But I am well aware that my book sales have to earn out that advance. That's an interest-free loan from the publisher that will keep you going until the book comes out and until it sells well enough for it to start, for your royalties to exceed the amount of the advance. It's also an incentive for the author to be a key part of the team in marketing and selling and promoting the book. One other curveball in figuring out the numbers of what my book is going to earn is the problem of returns. And those of you who sell your books through retail bookstores know that there's another oddity of the book selling business, and that is that retailers can return the merchandise to the distributor or publisher for up to a year for full credit. Now, just tell me what other line of retailing that would be acceptable in. So we live with a lot of realities in the book publishing business in order to have the honor of bringing our creative efforts to the public. And it's just worth knowing a little bit about how the game works so that we don't get caught accepting terms that aren't favorable at all to us. So just be aware that your returns will be deducted before you get paid royalties as well. What if I self-publish? The last question in today's presentation. Well, if you self-publish, you are thankfully in a lot better position of control over what you do with your content and how it can make you a living or reach other goals that are important to you. And in the early years of digital self-publishing, tied to the technology of desktop publishing, I was glad to be, poised to take advantage of that as somebody who had been designing books and knew my way around publishing for years. But there was still a great stigma attached to the idea of vanity publishing, being the goal of self-publishing. It's great that it has come around, and I used to teach this, that you need to think about your motives for self-publishing. Do you want the cash or do you want the cachet? And it's great that we live in an economy where you can honorably self-publish and control more of this flow of numbers in and out. So we're not, as I said, go to the next one, KJ, we're not going to get a chance to divide up that pie and see where all the money goes for production and royalties and wholesale. Maybe that's another workshop. And on the next slide, go back and revisit how is your book performing related to others. Once your book is published, you can see in Amazon sales rankings, and you have access to numbers that you didn't have when you were on the guesswork side up front. Move on down here, and we have sometimes, move on to the next one. If you would, have an exercise to guess the book according to its Amazon sales rank. Click through and put that sales rank up there. Number 1 in books for sports and outdoors, Sociology of Sports. This happens to be a Texas title and a classic. Anybody just want to take a wild guess for a chance to win a book?
99 Lives.
You got it. All right. Put that, KJ.
I got a book already, though.
Okay. Well, so share it with a neighbor.
Okay.
Here we go. And as I said, y'all can swap around. Go to the next one real quick. Number 29 in the Kindle store about cars, trains, and things that go. Early learning, animals, dogs. Okay, anybody want to name that classic? And you would be the winner of a copy of the paragraph read. Classics, animals, cars.
Sounds like Richard Scary.
You're really close. Well, this was one that my grandson Levi used to really love. Go ahead and put it up on the screen there. Go, dog, go. All right. So the next slide is to, as we close here, help me out. Now you see, I had to change my Facebook header to coming in spring 2021, but that's not so long now until the wolf hunt comes out, and I hope I'll get a chance.
Is there a month associated with that yet? Or is it
April 2021. I just found that out last week, so I was, very pleased that we're, back in the saddle. And I hope that the pandemic has eased up to where it's possible to do book signings again, to where libraries are not just shut down on their buying programs, so keep your fingers crossed that the numbers will all work out. And go to the next slide. So here, you don't have to guess this one. This is the metadata that had been posted for the wolf hunt, A Tale of the Texas Badlands, back in March. This was the day that I first got the Google alert that this book had gone up on Amazon with its date of October 21, and so we're already past that. But we all have to roll with the punches of the marketplace and of our own ability to deliver on deadlines and our own ability, most of all, to figure out how to make the numbers work for us. Thank y'all for, bearing with me for a little over time. According to y'all's availability, time for questions, time for book signing, whatever y'all want. Does anybody have any questions for Barbara? Yes.
Hey, you were talking about Amazon as a self-publisher, and that they have 70-something% of the market for adult fiction.
Wall Street Journal had an article last fall that said 72% of all adult books, not just fiction.
Considering that, what would you endorse going solely Amazon, or would you think that going specifically Amazon only would be a bad idea, and then you could go book?
That's a really good question. And my personal view, back when, it's been a few years since I had to make that decision personally, and my feeling was nobody gets a monopoly over my book, even when they try to twist my arm to provide more favorable terms in the Amazon program. So the more channels, the better. Always, even when Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla, there may be that library user. There may be, the more channels, the more channels your book can be discoverable in, the better for your book, I believe. But now others of you may have other opinions, so join in.
I was just going to follow up with what Dan said, because I read some blogs from some professional writers, Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush. And they say Amazon is not in other countries necessarily the way to go. Kobo is apparently big in Canada. Very good point. Very good point. And the international market is more important than it ever was. Cross-pollination among markets, among sales markets, among library lending, and among readers is and across language platforms is becoming more and more seamless. Oh, KJ, go ahead and flip to the last slide, which has something else that I want to ask your help for. Just a minute. Okay. So I was just about forgot I put that in there. Other questions? What other questions?
So is the book available for pre-order now?
The Wolf Hunt will be available for pre-order in just a few weeks as soon as it has a cover image. So publishers don't go live for pre-orders until key areas of metadata have been populated. Mostly of that's done, and they don't go out naked without a cover. So if you self-publish, if you small press publish, you'll want to make sure that all of those elements come together. And an important place where we left off on that week that everything changed for 5-Star Publishing was I had just received 2 cover proofs. And neither of them really quite matched the brief that I had given them in my questionnaire. But then you see that, I'm awfully prejudiced by the hardcover original by the master over here, and I don't expect that this beautiful Victorian style cover of the original Hound of the Baskervilles is going to be what sells a novel or that attracts readers in the 21st century. Nonetheless, I'm really fond of it. So I'm wondering your takes on options A and B, or any suggestions that you might give me for feeding back to them, because this is the week that I get back to them with the rest of the proof corrections and my cover feedback.
I prefer A. I always look at covers because of Amazon that you look at it as a thumbnail, so you look at it very small. And that A cover, you can see that there's a wolf. It gives you a lot more visuals. The other one's more subtle. You can see the title better, but I like the placement of A. And the visual as a thumbnail, I think, is much more powerful on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the other places you would be looking at it on a computer.
Yes, that's right. That's a good point.
B is more graphic. There is a trend right now to go to the more graphic styles, but I prefer A personally as well. I don't like the placement of the words, the way that they are.
Words, title and subtitle,
especially
series,
title,
author.
Because the wolf hunt with hunt off to the right like that, it doesn't balance well in my mind. I can't see this on the screen well enough to know if there's something that's written in there that makes the word hunt move over.
No, there's not. I think that they're looking to solve a typographical difficulty, which is 3 short words that may not stack well, and that if put on one line might also not be large enough in the thumbnail. That was a good point.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Dan. I like the way it's offset because it's different.
Okay,
I see where he's coming from.
And from a typographical standpoint, it keeps the ascenders and descenders, and they're not really ascenders and descenders in capital letters, but the serifs, it keeps them from crashing. It keeps them from running together, maybe. Although I don't think that this is the most elegant design of that attempt that I've ever seen. So thank you for pointing that out to me.
I would suggest putting a graphic for the title so that your words become an element instead of just text.
Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean there?
Well, if it became a design of its own, like the wolf hunt, it is in a design, and it becomes something that is you can mark it as, whenever you see the wolf hunt in that particular format, written that way, it is yours, and you can actually copyright it. But it would have to be, you could turn it into a Western key, you could turn it into a different shape, and then it would become a design element all of its own.
Like Harry Potter with the little jag in the words. So.
A recognizable element if we anticipate this becoming a series, fingers crossed.
So I think it's genius, first of all. I just want to tell you this is genius because I did look at the newspaper, and in my previous before I was an administrator, I was an English teacher. And I kept saying, what is this? Like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I didn't put the connection together, so I said, oh, okay. So I would really play that up and use the exact same coloring, either A or B, as the Hound of the Baskervilles, because I think English teachers would go crazy about this. Because I just think that it needs to be more apparent that that's what it is.
Wow, so tying into the branding of the original and you think is smart. Oh,
my goodness.
That's a really good point.
The coloring, I mean, either way, it could be the same cover, either cover.
And I just want to see a show of hands, how many of you have read The Hound of the Baskervilles in some form or fashion? And I don't mean seeing in the movies, I mean how many of you have read it? I'll wager that every one of you has read it in a different edition, with different cover art, different typography, different treatment. And one of the reasons for this pastiche is the challenge that it is said that Sherlock Holmes is the most adapted character in all of literary fiction. So, you know, who could resist the challenge? All right, so maybe that argues for integrating some of the reds and golds of the original. I don't know, but you know, going back to what you said about a kind of logo feel and something that's repeated across the series, Kay and I were so thrilled with Book Trope's designer in the Paragraph Ranch series, where the treatment of the angled, or the arced type here, and the different fonts, the way they combined so expertly, we loved it so much. It became, I mean, we put it everywhere. It became the business card, and eventually, I'm giving something away from book 3, eventually, it's going to become the sign at the ranch gate. So yeah, kind of. I like that, and I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't thought of that.
We did that with the Caprock logo.
Yeah. Okay. Right. You had that appears everywhere. You did a great job on that. I saw another question somewhere. KJ.
I had an idea for if you're trying to compare, like get some of the gold maybe around the picture like he has with the wolf, or some kind of curling element that carries.
Right, instead of just vignetting this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you could do to kind of mirror that. And I like her idea of using the red instead of the purple, make it red and change the tone of the lettering, of course, you have to fix. To kind of carry the theme between the two.
All right. I will see how much leeway they'll give me. You know, there were two things that I really worked hard to negotiate in this contract, and one of them was totally a non-starter. I tried to negotiate, you know, the royalty based on retail. That didn't go. But in return, I got approval rights on the cover, which is rare enough these days too. So I do have a bit of input, but I can't hold them up for long.
I was just going to say something. I do prefer A for the most part, but what would happen if you were to take your sans serif text from B and put it on to A?
I think the sans serif type is more gripping,
Yeah,
even though historically I like serif types.
Serif for body text is great inside
Yeah,
your
right.
lead your eye along, but on all caps like that, it seems more difficult to see. For at least my vision, I have some vision problems.
I think I like that idea. Yeah, thanks. All right. Anything else? Y'all probably have some visiting to do and stuff like that, and you know, we also hope that you'll come up and, you know, if you haven't yet acquired a copy of the Paragraph Ranch series for your library, then there are two of us here to sign it, and I also have a free copy of Authentic Texas Magazine's recent issue for you. So, thank y'all. It's been great to connect again.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I really, really appreciate you guys coming back, and I'm thrilled that you're here. As Barbara said, she was supposed to be our speaker whenever everything kind of fell apart in April, and so I'm glad that we've able to circle back to that, and I highly recommend both books in the series. Do you have both of them here?
Yes.
The Paragraph Ranch series, and so please, take advantage of that opportunity to get a copy of that. I really appreciate you bringing those, and I want to say one more time, just a reminder about our contest, the Holly Jolly Microfiction Contest.
Board of Directors.
I'm sorry?
Board of Directors.
Oh, yes, and the Board of Directors vote. So we're voting on who's going to lead the group next year, and we have some fantastic people who have stepped up to take those positions and lead the group forward, but we want your input, so please.
And we need volunteers.
And we do need some more volunteers, so please go to caprockwriters.com. Is that our caprockwriters.com? And if you're a member, you can vote on those, and you can volunteer for some of those positions that are still open. If you're not a member, we would so love to have you, so please join. Again, the Holly Jolly microfiction contest, it's only 500 words. There are no entry fees. You can enter more than once. We're going to be reading some of the winners at the next meeting in December. Logistics on how we're going to do that are still a little bit up in the air. We're trying to figure out how to both meet in person like we are and Zoom in, and we're meeting some technology challenges on that, so I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but it's going to happen somehow, and we would love to have you here. And we have a fantastic prize for the winner is an hour with the KJ Consultancy. And we are so fortunate to have KJ as part of this group, and she knows what she's doing with marketing, and so that is a fantastic prize, so please take advantage of that. And with that, I guess we will disband and, oh, yes, sir.
I didn't see how to submit an entry.
So the entry form for the microfiction is going out in an email, and so watch your emails for that. The entry form is, it's also on the website? Okay, and it's also on the website, so check out caprockriders.com and check your email for that, and please enter more than once. Enter much. December 6th at 11:59 p.m. So you have a little time, and for those of you who are doing nano, those words would count for your nano word count. So don't use nano as an excuse not to enter. All right. Well, thank you very much.